Senate, and I'm not sure who the group is behind you, but
they went to the wrong location with me, so they're just more people to sit in on the meeting.
We have some people visiting from Burlington that wanted to hear you.
Yeah, I don't know how we got our signals crossed. We were up the street just waiting around, and in front of a
we were driving around.
We were in front of a little house. Where we were.
So are all those people from Burlington then?
I don't know. Where are you guys from?
Barkhamsted.
New Hartford.
They want them.
Maybe you guys can come on in.
Some of you may be able to stand back here and be able to see here.
Let's see, where's the best vantage point for me?
Where were you at?
Right there. Top of the
Talking, sir.
Excuse me.
Yeah, you want to stand over here? You want to stand over here?
Well, it sounds like you guys
It's all about the video.
Yeah, well, I don't care about this guy. He's from Brooklyn, man, right here. Over where? Perfect. Over here, right here. This is good. Everybody's kind of out in front now. All right. Anyway, I don't know how much time we have because I know we have a tight schedule. So let me just talk for just 5 minutes or so and take your questions because I think the question and answers end up being the most important part of these meetings. So I'm running for the United States Senate, and I have no experience whatsoever in politics. I've never run for anything. I've been a business person my whole life. I'm involved in finance. I run a small brokerage firm called Euro Pacific Capital. My headquarters are in Westport. I have 6 offices around the country, a little over 100 employees. We do retail brokerage, so most of my clients are regular individuals, like people in this room. I do investment banking. I do asset management. I have a couple of mutual funds. I'm totally in the private sector, but one thing that is unique about what my business is I'm very focused on Washington. I'm very focused on economic policy because I make my investment recommendations based on my view of economics. And I've been very concerned for many, many years about the policies coming out of Washington and how destructive they are to our economy, how destructive they are to the value of our money, and that has really shaped my global investment strategy over the years. But the problem is that the policies in Washington are now so destructive that I feel as an American, rather than just trying to protect myself from what's happening in Washington, I actually want to go to Washington and see if I can stop it. I think that the country is on a collision course with a real economic collapse. That there was a financial crisis in 2008, and many people correctly attribute me for one of the few people that actually predicted it, and I did. And I predicted it on television, I predicted it in my books, and I was very specific about why we were in trouble. And I didn't blame the market, I didn't blame capitalism, I blamed the government. And the government, of course, is the reason that we're in so much trouble. The government inflated the housing bubble. That wasn't a creation of the private sector. The Federal Reserve blew the air into it with 1% interest rates. The government subsidized it through Freddie and Fannie, where they guaranteed mortgages. It was all done as part of the stimulus under George Bush and Alan Greenspan to try to get the economy going after the dot-com bubble burst. Instead of letting the free market work, we juiced it up with government stimulants, and the result was a reckless spending binge on Wall Street and Main Street, and we created the housing bubble that, of course, it eventually blew up like I said it would, and we had a very severe recession. And instead of letting the market function, Obama and Bernanke are repeating the mistakes of the past, and we are now creating an even bigger problem than the one that we're supposedly trying to solve. And I want to go to Washington and put an end to this cycle of constant bubble blowing and economic stimulus that actually sedates the economy. I think the crisis that we are about to enter into, and it's going to hit sometime in the next few years, is going to be far worse. I think we're going to have a currency crisis. I think the value of our money is going to plunge. It's going to send prices, consumer prices, through the roof. It's going to send interest rates through the roof. And we're going to suffer more. The first bubble that we inflated was the NASDAQ bubble. Then we inflated the housing bubble. Now they're inflating a government bubble. That's where all the new money is going. It's going into the government. It's going for government programs that we don't need and that we can't afford. The government is now spending almost $4 trillion a year. It's twice as big as it was 10 years ago when George Bush first became president. We can't afford all that government. It is destroying the economy. It takes all of our resources just to sustain it. Those are the resources that we need to grow an economy, to produce, to provide goods and services, to create jobs. We can't do any of that because the government is taking all of our resources. So it has to come to an end. And we can't just talk about it. We need to do it. And that's the difference between me and typical politicians. I'm not going to Washington because I need a job. I'm not going to Washington because I want to be there. I'd rather not be there. If career politicians hadn't made such a mess, right, I wouldn't have to interrupt my career to go clean it up. But that's what I'm willing to do. And I'm willing to go to Washington for 6 years. That's one Senate term. That's what I want, and that's all I think I've got. I think if I can't turn this ship around in 6 years, it's too late. We can't keep spending this kind of money for 6 years. We can't have 6 years of more regulation and more money printing because we won't have a viable economy at the end of it. So it has to stop. And the main thing that I want to do, and I'll take your questions, is I want to be the person in the Senate that leads the filibuster to stop the increase in the debt ceiling. And I want to stop it when I'm elected. I want the deficit spending to stop with me. A lot of people want to talk about it, talk about balancing the budget, talk about balanced budget amendments.